Talk about the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams have made a lot of decisions so far this offseason. You had the entire situation with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford wants to be paid more money. He has no guaranteed money left on his current contract, and the Rams are willing to go out there and give him a contract extension. How much was the main question? 5 weeks ago, they told Matthew Stafford to go out there, not work out a trade, but see what you are worth across the NFL. The New York Giants, they were trying to work out a deal, and the same with the Las Vegas Raiders. Tom Brady was also talking with Matthew Stafford behind the scenes. Tom Brady is a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders. Ultimately, Matthew Stafford said, forget all of this. I'm willing to come back to LA. We'll worry about the contract later on in the offseason. So he will still be a part of this roster. But for how much longer? Matthew Stafford is an older quarterback, and he has dealt with injuries. But he's one of the toughest quarterbacks that we've seen. He will play through his injuries. I've seen him have hand injuries, knee injuries, a back injury. He's played through all of them. The only time that we've seen Matthew Stafford miss majority of the season was his second year with the Rams. But so far, him and Sean McVay have been one of the best head coaching and quarterback pairings in the NFL over the last 10 to 15 years. And the reason why I say that, the Rams, they hit their ceiling with Jared Goff. They went to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots a few years ago. They lost that Super Bowl in a defensive slugout, and you saw Sean McVay, he was very frustrated. Now, they made a bold move. Sean McVay did not go out there. He did not draft Jared Goff with the first overall pick. That was Jeff Fisher and his administration. But as soon as Sean McVay comes in, they make the NFL playoffs. For you to move off of your first overall pick and to bring in a veteran quarterback from the Detroit Lions, and let's just be honest here, Matthew Stafford is a top quarterback in football. Talent-wise, in terms of throwing the football down the field, he was a great quarterback with the Lions, but they did not win a lot of football games with Matthew Stafford every single year. It was not that much success. So to go out there and move off of Jared Goff and bring in Matthew Stafford, that was a huge gamble. Imagine if they didn't win the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford in the first season. A lot of people would have been calling for Sean McVay's job. That's just my opinion. Because you know the quarterback discourse. If you don't win enough games, if you don't go out there and contend for a Super Bowl every single year, a lot of people are they're going to go out there, they're going to point the quarterback and say he's the reason, or they're going to point the head coach. But to see Matthew Stafford in his first season come over with the Los Angeles Rams and have 41 passing touchdowns and 17 interceptions, and they won that Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals, it was pretty impressive. Now, the second year, Matthew Stafford, 10 passing touchdowns to 8 interceptions. The reason why I'm going back and I'm looking at history is because of this. Matthew Stafford is regressing as a quarterback, but he is still a top quarterback to have. That's why the Raiders are willing to go out there and pay him money to bring him in, and the same with the New York Giants. We have not seen him replicate the season that he had in his first year in LA. Now, defenses have gotten significantly better since then, but Matthew Stafford is slowing down. So they're trying to maximize his window right now with Matthew Stafford. We've seen Cooper Kupp go out there, win Super Bowl MVP, have his best season of his career in his first year with Matthew Stafford. But they also went out there and they drafted Puka Nacua because Cooper Kupp has missed so much time over the last 3 years. By drafting Puka Nacua in his rookie season, he was the number 1 option, and Cooper Kupp became the number 2 option. And the one thing about Matthew Stafford, if he builds a rapport with you, he's going to feed you the football. The pairing of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, it was amazing. But it was just a matter of time before they moved off of Cooper Kupp. They already made the decision to keep Matthew Stafford around. They cut Cooper Kupp. They tried to trade him before the trade deadline. A report came out, and Sean McVay addressed that on the Thursday Night Football game. Right after the game, he said, I want to keep Cooper Kupp on this roster. And they did that for the rest of the season. Around the Super Bowl week, that's when they told Cooper Kupp, you're going to be traded. We want to move on. They could not work out a trade. They cut him. He is now with the Seattle Seahawks. They go out there and they bring in Davante Adams. Davante Adams is still a top wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. I know that he gets a bad reputation for his relationship with Aaron Rodgers and him following around quarterbacks like Derek Carr. But if I told you that Davante Adams was still putting up over 1,500 receiving yards in the season with Derek Carr, you'll call me crazy. But that's what he did in 2022. He had 1,516 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns. The next season with the Las Vegas Raiders, he had Jimmy Garoppolo as his starting quarterback. He also had Aiden O'Connell. He had 1,144 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. And just last season with the New York Jets and also with the Las Vegas Raiders, because he got to play with both franchises, he still had over 1,000 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. And that was a terrible situation with the New York Jets. You had Nathaniel Hackett calling plays, completely terrible as offensive coordinator. They relieved him of his duties. Then you had Ty Downing. Everyone with the New York Jets looked bad, but you saw Davante Adams still be able to stretch the field. He is still one of the better deep threats that you can have. He is not known for his speed. And this is one of those situations where you look at Davante Adams, he just had to be the fastest wide receiver to get open deep down the field. He is still one of the best route runners that you can have, and he has great hands. So having him and Puka Nacua, that's a perfect wide receiving duo for Sean McVay. We saw what Sean McVay was able to do with Cooper Kupp. He helped develop him. He also helped develop Puka Nacua. Those are great players in their own right. Give them their credit. They have to go out there and put the work in. They have to catch the football. But the scheme that Sean McVay is running, damn near every single play, a wide receiver is going to be open. It just comes down to the offensive line and can Matthew Stafford see the wide receiver. We're talking about a coach in Sean McVay that has only had one losing season in his career. And that losing season came after that Super Bowl hangover. And his starting quarterback was out majority of the season, and Matthew Stafford, and they were still competitive with a backup quarterback. And you also had Cooper Kupp that was out dealing with his injuries. And you had to trade some pieces on your defense, and some of those veteran names left, like Von Miller. And Sean McVay still found a way to get the best out of that team. Sean McVay is a top coach in the NFL. I have him as a top 5 coach in the NFL currently. That is how great that he is. So to see Davante Adams, he is older. But don't get him mistaken. He can still go out there and he can still get over some top cornerbacks in the NFL. And he is not going to be the primary target every single week because you have him, you have Puka Nacua, and it's more than just these 2 wide receivers. You also have Tutu Atwell, who can take the top off the defense and can be a major deep threat on a consistent basis. He just had 562 receiving yards, did not have a receiving touchdown, but they use him as a decoy a lot. And when you talk about wide receivers that can do everything for you, that's what Davante Adams is. He can kill you underneath. He can go over the top and those intermediate routes across the middle of the field. And Puka Nacua is also a great route runner. He can run past cornerbacks also. They did lose Demarcus Robinson, which is terrible. Demarcus Robinson was a very good player with the Los Angeles Rams. It's not a huge hit in terms of you missing your number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, but he had some big time moments with the Rams over the last 2 years. They could easily draft a wide receiver in the 4th or the 5th round to play behind the veterans in Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, and the same with Tutu Atwell. The wide receiving core, I like it. I like it a lot. And you have Tyler Higbee at the tight end spot. Tyler Higbee is a very good receiving tight end. Can give you a lot of good production there if you give him the football and if he can stay fully healthy. Now, Kyren Williams is a top runner to have. Kyren Williams is very good, but the fumbles have hurt him since the start of his career. We saw what happened 2 years ago. When he missed time, the entire offense took a step back. And we know one thing about Sean McVay. As much as he loves to pass the football with Matthew Stafford and the same with Jared Goff and all those weapons that I just talked about, he is a run-first coach. We saw this with Ty Gurley. We also saw this with C.J. Anderson when he came into the matchup for when Ty Gurley went down and he was dealing with his knee injuries. He loves to run the football. Kyren Williams, this previous season, put up solid numbers. 1,299 rushing yards. That was the 7th most in the NFL. 14 rushing touchdowns. But he has to do a better job of not fumbling the football. And he's a dangerous receiving threat coming out of the backfield and goal line situations. Look at what they did against the Minnesota Vikings. Not once, but twice. You beat the hell out of them in the postseason and did a very good job of beating them in the regular season. Look at the first touchdowns. Kyren Williams coming out of the backfield. It's the fumbles. That's it. They did draft Blake Corum. Blake Corum did not do much his rookie season. But if Kyren Williams is going to continue to fumble the football at a high rate, do not be surprised if they go out there and they run the football more with Blake Corum. I think that's the ideal situation with the Rams anyway, is to use Kyren Williams and use Blake Corum as a 1-2 punch in the backfield. And this offensive line, they have rebuilt this offensive line on the fly within the last 2 years, because we go back to that year after the Super Bowl. Part of the reason why Matthew Stafford could not stay upright, the offensive line was completely terrible. Andrew Whitworth, he had just retired. You need to bring in a brand new tackle. The guard position was depleted, but you go out there, you draft Steve Avila. He's a top interior offensive lineman. Big Rob at the right tackle position. He's very good. You picked up Kevin Dotson. He's a very good right tackle. Alaric Jackson at the left tackle position. All of a sudden, we're talking about a top offensive line unit in the NFC. And the one thing that you have to do if you're a defense is put pressure on Matthew Stafford. And even if you do, it's a good chance of how tough he is and how good he is in terms of going out there and shedding sacks. You're going to be in trouble. Because like I mentioned before, this is a quarterback-friendly system. He can make any throw on the field. And we saw this with the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings were known to do what last season? Blitz the quarterback at a high rate. They did that with Matthew Stafford. They could not get to him. And when they did get to him on a rare basis, it was too late. Someone was already open down the field or he dumps the football off to Kyren Williams. This is a definition of a complete offense that can run the football, pass the football down the field, and they can get you in the intermediate routes also. We see a lot of offenses in the NFL to where the quarterback can't throw deep down the middle of the field on a consistent basis. Matthew Stafford can do that. He can take advantage of the one-on-one opportunities on the outside. And you have to put the tight end in single coverage because you're not going to just go out there and lead Devontae Adams in one-on-one situations, and the same with Puka Nacua. And if you run cover 2 man, they have man beaters. And we talk about Tutu Atwell in this situation. It's one of the best offenses that they have right now on paper, and I expect for the Rams to make a deeper playoff run for one more season with Matthew Stafford. And if he wants to stay for the next 2 to 3 years, expect for the Rams to still be a contender in the NFC. And one more thing that I want to note before I talk about their defense, the Rams and their offense was the only offense in the postseason that went out there and gave Jalen Hurts hell. This was the only team that was competitive against the Philadelphia Eagles, and they did that in the snow. We're talking about an LA team that plays in an indoor stadium. They went out there and they kept that game close. It came down to the fumbles by Matthew Stafford and the same with Kyren Williams. If I'm going to come on here and crush Kyren Williams about his turnovers, I have to do the same with Matthew Stafford. You can't fumble the football in that situation against the Eagles, but to see the Rams go out there and compete with the Super Bowl champions, that's impressive. There's no such thing as a good loss, but you can hang your hat on that. That is how good Sean McVay was this season, and the same with this offense that had a lot of young pieces. Now, when I look at this defense, their defense has also been rebuilt on the fly within the last 3 to 4 years. Remember when they had Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller? Aaron Donald retired. Who was going to be that next best defensive tackle? We saw Kobe Turner his rookie season. He led all rookies in sacks. But there's an argument. He's only getting the sack numbers because he's not getting double teamed as much. Aaron Donald is the guy that's getting double teamed. He's getting a lot of single one-on-one opportunities. Well, we just saw this previous season that Kobe Turner is legit. 8 sacks on the year, 1 forced fumble. And he was one of the most double team players in the NFL. But there was a problem when they did that. When you're double teaming Kobe Turner, guys like Byron Young are coming off the edge. They're giving you problems. He has 7.5 sacks on the season, 1 forced fumble, and he had one of the highest pressure rates with the Los Angeles Rams this previous season. Jared Verse, very good player, won Defensive Player of the Year, rightfully deserved. 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. You may say, how in the hell does a rookie go out there and only have 4.5 sacks, and how does he win Rookie Defensive Player of the Year? Because he had the highest pressure rate with the Los Angeles Rams. He had one of the highest pressure rates in the NFL. The sack numbers are not there just yet, but we also saw this with Will Anderson his rookie season. He was getting to the quarterback, and he's an athletic defensive lineman. So when you face those quarterbacks like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, these are the type of defensive players that can come off the edge and they can keep up with them and they can mirror their athleticism. It helps out the entire defense. And he was very good against the run down the stretch. And that was the Achilles heel for the Los Angeles Rams. They were not the best against the run. We saw this against Jalen Hurts when he had the major run early in the game. And we also saw that when they had to go against Saquon Barkley later in the matchup in the fourth quarter. Their run game has to be better. But you had a first-year defensive coordinator in Chris Shula. Remember, Raheem Morris left the Rams. He went to become the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. And Raheem Morris was a solid defensive coordinator over his stint with the Rams. But Chris Shula did a very good job also in terms of going out there and moving defensive players around, running different twists, running different stunts to put pressure on quarterbacks like Brock Purdy and Kyler Murray and Geno Smith. And the hit job that he did on Sam Darnold, they sacked him 9 times. The defense essentially won them that matchup, and their offense went out there and they took care of business also. But you have a very good and young defensive line. I know that you lost Bobby Brown. He was a top rushing defender with you, but you bring in Poona Ford. Poona Ford, very good run defender. And when you look at Bobby Brown, you drafted him, you helped develop him. I think that Poona Ford right now is a better player than Bobby Brown because he can do a better job in terms of getting to the quarterback. Bobby Brown has some moments of going back there and putting pressure on the quarterback. It wasn't consistent enough. He was just a very good run stopper. And you have Braden Fisk, who you drafted with Jared Verse. They're former college teammates at the Florida State University. The entire defense looks very good. And you have Omar Speights at the right linebacking spot. They need to bring in an interior linebacker. I think that's the biggest weakness right now with the Rams outside their secondary. But you have all those pass rushers. They're young. They're athletic. You're going to be okay on that end. I expect for this defense to take a major step up. The rushing defense just has to be better. When I look at the secondary, Darius Williams, he's a solid veteran. He's not a true number one. Ahkello Witherspoon has also been a solid player with the Rams. He's not a true number one. And the same with Quentin Lake. They need a true outside cornerback, especially in this division, because you have Cooper Kupp that you now have to worry about. Jackson Smith-Njigba with the Seattle Seahawks. They're on the same team. It's going to take some time for me to get used to seeing Cooper Kupp with the Seahawks. Then you have Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall with the San Francisco 49ers. And Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Arizona Cardinals. They have to draft a cornerback in the first round. When we get into talks about them planning for the future with Matthew Stafford, what should they do? It depends on that contract. Should they draft a quarterback in this year's draft class? Maybe. But I look at Sean McVay, he's a quarterback guru. You can kick that can down the road. I don't think this is the quarterback class for the Rams to go up there and try to reach for a quarterback in the first round. I see a lot of reports that they like Jackson Dart, not in the first round. Hell, not even in the second round for the Rams. Because this is a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl right now. When you look at the top tier teams in the NFC, you have the Eagles, of course. You could say the San Francisco 49ers when they're fully healthy. The Rams have to be in that conversation. They're a top 3 team in this conference. Hell, they may be top 2. And you have the Minnesota Vikings, but right now, JJ is a question mark. So you have to put the Rams in that contender category. They're not pretenders. And they're not rebuilding right now. So I don't get the sense that the Rams will go up there and they'll run to the podium on day 1 or day 2 in the NFL draft and say, you know what, we're getting our quarterback of the future. In theory, that sounds nice, but you need to rack up on young players that can help out your defense on the back end and worry about this quarterback situation later on. This is not a situation like the Steelers to where they don't have a quarterback on their roster and they have a head coach that's scrambling right now for that quarterback position. And it's a lot of questions. Can Mike Tomlin go out there and can he develop a quarterback? And I'm just comparing situations right here with the Rams. So be careful when you hear people say they should go up there, they should draft a quarterback. Why is that? Because Matthew Stafford's getting older. He is regressing, sure. But I look at Jimmy Garoppolo, and I know you may laugh at this. Jimmy Garoppolo is a solid backup. As a starter, I don't trust him. But we saw him with Kyle Shanahan. The same system that Kyle Shanahan runs, Sean McVay runs a similar system. Quarterback friendly. You can go out there, pick up a quarterback, you'll be okay. Let's not forget the work that Sean McVay did with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield had just got cut by the Carolina Panthers. The Rams pick him up on short week's notice. They go out there, they defeated the Las Vegas Raiders. And no one saw Baker Mayfield at that time turning his career around, but Sean McVay did. He did a lot of great work with him, and Baker Mayfield has given credit to Sean McVay because he helped slow the game down. So whoever the quarterback is long term, they'll be okay as long as Sean McVay is there. But I look at the Rams right now, they're making one last Super Bowl run with Matthew Stafford. It may be for this season and the season after. But I look at the Rams as a contender in the NFC. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy for the Rams year in and year out. But with the roster that they have, adding in Devontae Adams with Puka Nacua, that's just nasty in my opinion, in a good way. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Los Angeles Rams? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.